All right, we're working on Leviticus 19, and hopefully you've just read through that. If you haven't, please do. You will see that there is a lot of different commands that don't seem to have much to do with each other. So let's figure out what they have to do with each other. Because understanding this is the key to understanding the chapter. Okay, the first 4 verses is kind of an introduction. The last verse is kind of a conclusion. So let's look at these and see if we can get a clue about what's going on here. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to all the children of Israel, the congregation of the children of Israel, and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Every one of you shall fear his mother and his father, and guard my Shabbats. I am Yahweh your God. Do not turn to idols, nor make for yourselves molded gods. I am Yahweh your God." All right, and then the last verse, "Therefore you shall observe all my statutes and all my judgments and perform them. I am Yahweh." All right. So, holiness is a big deal here. Fear your mother and your father. The mother and the father is in the 10 Commandments. It's a category of commands that has to do with human authority. And so this is talking about government, okay, in all levels, from family all the way up to national government. And so it's dealing something with government. The next one is my Shabbat. These are the various ceremonies that are in the scripture. And not turning to idols. Here's your purpose. When you follow God, you're not following idols. When you're following an idol, you're not following God. So basically what this is saying is that we're going to have a group of ceremonies. We're going to have a society, a government that excludes doing other things besides God. Okay? Now, Israel is a very different kind of nation than all the other nations. Israel is called Israel, and the other nations are called Gentile. And the reason for that is because of this idolatry situation. When in Israel, if you're following Torah, you're not supposed to have any idolatry. It is the worst crime, okay? It is punishable by death, and you cannot commute it, okay? In other countries, idolatry is perfectly acceptable. It's not punishable by death. Of course, there are certain countries that have idols where they punish people for not following the idol. But they don't have that because it's more about freedom, okay? Israel is not about religious freedom. It is a place where you can go to worship God and not be hindered by it, okay? So what we're doing here is we're contrasting the type of government that we have in Israel to the type of government that you have elsewhere. Elsewhere is for freedom. Israel is for worshiping God. If you don't want to worship God, you need to go somewhere else. Pretty simple, okay? And The question is, how do you encourage people to worship God? Okay? All of the other countries, you are encouraged to sin. You look at our society, everywhere you turn, somebody is in your face trying to get you to sin in one way or the other. You go to Christian churches, they don't even know what sin is. They don't follow the Torah. They go eat shrimp afterwards, after they worship God. And they have no idea because they are so inundated with the sin that is being encouraged in the society that we're in. And so what we're doing, and then when you look at the conclusion is, you will guard my statutes and my judgments. That's looking at them over and over and over again in order to do them. So the purpose of this chapter is to help you to actually do the commandments. In other words, it's going to encourage you to be righteous rather than encouraging you to be unrighteous. And when you go through all of these commands, what we have to see is how is that command helping us to develop a society that encourages righteousness rather than encouraging sin. So that is the clue right there. That is what all of these commands have to do with each other. It's a very interesting way to look at the commands of the Torah. The Torah commands can be looked at in a number of ways, and this is one of them. Okay, so let's go through these commands and see how they encourage us to live righteously. Okay, starting in verse 5. If you offer a sacrifice of a peace offering to the Lord, and you shall offer it of your own free will, it shall be eaten the same day you offer it on the next day, and on the next day. If any remains until the third day, it shall be burned in the fire, and it shall be, if it is eaten at all on the third day, it is an abomination. It shall not be accepted. Therefore, everyone who eats it shall bear his iniquity, because he has profaned the hallowed offering of Yahweh, and that person shall be cut off from his people. Now, we learned all about the peace offering back in the early chapters of Leviticus. What we didn't learn about the peace offering is that you only have 2 days to eat it. On the third day, you can't eat any more of it. All right? So, why is this mentioned in this chapter here and not mentioned before? Well, what is the peace offering? The peace offering is our relationship with God. When we're in Israel, we have peace with God because we are doing the things that God wants us to do. When we're outside of the land of Israel in a Gentile nation, we are at war with God because we're doing things that God does not want us to do, i.e. sin. Okay? So the peace offering is all about being in Israel particularly, but it's about having a community that encourages us to get closer to God rather than encouraging us to get away from God. So, why is it saying first 2 days and not the third day? Well, the first 2 days is where the connection to God is new. Okay, the third day it's getting stale. In other words, we need to meet daily. When we meet daily, then we're going to get a new revelation from God, a new connection to Him, and things are going to be going good. We're going to continue to get closer to him. If we're not doing things with him, not praying, not meeting, then we're going to be falling away from him. If you're dependent upon an experience that you had back in '08 for your connection to God, you're in trouble. You've got to have a connection to God that is ongoing, something that is moving, something that is getting better every day. Okay? Verse 9, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather every grape of your vineyard. That's talking about the fallen grapes. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am Yahuwah, your God. So, taking care of the poor is a very important part of a society that encourages towards righteousness. If you have poor people who are being left out, and they're part of your society, what's going to happen? Well, they're going to turn to crime, and they're going to be causing all kinds of problems. They're going to be complaining to God, and God is going to be punishing you for that. Okay? So we have to take care of the poor. And this is something that is mentioned in the New Testament when it's talking about the congregations. Paul is encouraged to take care of the poor within the congregation. And he said he was very concerned about doing that. Why? Because of this. If your congregation has poor people that you're not taking care of, you're going to have a problem in your community. Verse 11, you shall not steal, nor deceive, nor deal falsely to his people. And you shall not swear by my name falsely, nor shall you profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. You shall not defraud your neighbor, nor rob him. The wages of him who is hired shall not remain with you all night long until morning. You shall not curse the deaf, nor put a stumbling block before the blind, but you shall fear the Lord your God. I am Yahuwah. Okay, so stealing is a real problem in a society, and it has a wide range of things. Their stealing can be anything from armed robbery, obviously, but it can also go down to withholding wages for more than a day. When you withhold wages for more than a day, then that is considered to be stealing. Okay? Interest is stealing. Rent is stealing, according to the Torah. So these things cause problems with people. Why? Because they are now a victim. They are being forced into doing something that they don't want to do. Whenever you're oppressed, it causes problems. You cry out to God, and God comes and he starts punishing the nation or the society for doing that. And as a congregation with a line around it, we have, God is dealing with us as a community. So if we're doing something within our community that is incorrect, that is stealing in this sense, in the lightest sense, that causes a problem within the congregation, and people in the congregation get punished for the sins of someone in the congregation who is doing some very minor sin. Okay? Now, of course, this is This is based on holiness, not righteousness. You saw in the introduction that we're told to be holy, not righteous. Okay? We're supposed to do the commands at the end. In other words, the purpose of these commands is to set up a society that helps you to live righteously. But what is required is holiness. And holiness is different. Holiness is moving. When you're on the path and you're getting closer to God, that's holiness. If you're on the path and you're getting farther away from God, that's not holiness. Okay? So you don't have to be 100% righteous in order to be holy. You have to be 100% righteous with whatever God has shown you up to that point. Okay? So that you can get closer to Him. That's what holiness is. And so if you are aware of some minor sin where you are defrauding someone or taking the Lord's name in vain, in other words, representing Him incorrectly, then this is going to cause a problem because you are not holy and you're part of that congregation, and that congregation is being affected by you, meaning that everybody in the congregation is subject to punishment for your sin. All right. Verse 15. You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty. In righteousness you shall judge your neighbor. You shall not go about as a talebearer among your people, nor shall you take a stand against the blood of your neighbor. I am EliYahu. So we have to have a justice system that is correct. Now, in government, there are two kinds of justice systems. You have a justice system by law, and you have a justice system which is arbitrary. Arbitrary means you don't really know what you're going to get when you go into court because it can change. That's arbitrary justice. That's what we have in this country today. When you go to court, if you are innocent, stand a 50-50 chance of getting punished because of the arbitrariness of our court system. Now, our Constitution says that we're supposed to have a system of law. But as soon as judges started legislating from the bench, that went out the window. Okay, we're not following the Constitution. If you have a due justice in law, and the legislature is the only people that can make a law, then you know what the laws are, and if you obey them, you're not going to have a problem in court. You don't have to get a lawyer, you just have to lay out what happened, and you will be freed, okay, because the law says so. But that's not what happens today. Whoever pays the biggest bribe to the lawyer, that's the guy who gets off. Okay? Criminals know their way around the justice system, they get off. If you're innocent and you don't know the justice system, like a criminal who has been in prison knows it, you're probably going to have problems with it and get convicted of something that you did not do. Okay? And right here it says, you shall not stand against the blood of your neighbor. Now, what that means, the blood is talking about the life, right? The life is in the blood. So, in other words, when your neighbor is being threatened by a criminal, it is your obligation under Torah to defend that person. That is why Yeshua told his disciples at the end of his ministry, you need to get some swords so that you can defend each other. Okay? You always go in teams of two so you can defend each other. Okay? And so we are required to defend each other. And if we are not defending each other, then we are allowing someone to be hurt by a criminal. And that's not a society that you want. You look at a city where somebody gets beat up by a gang of criminals, and there's all kinds of people standing around doing nothing. That's not the kind of society that you want to be in. And what does that do? That encourages you to be a victim. That encourages you to be to fight back, be a vigilante, do some kind of damage because you're angry. You know, it leads to one thing after another. That's not the kind of society that we want. It certainly doesn't encourage us to be righteous. Being partial to the poor or honoring the person of the mighty. We do both of those in this country. If you are a VIP, you get special treatment. I was just reading an article about how this billionaire was endorsing one of the Democratic candidates because she said we want to tax the rich, and you say, wow. Why would the rich want to be taxed more? But then in the article explained that we were talking about a 2% tax going up to a 3% tax. And and indeed, that is more tax than they pay right now. They're paying zero because of the loopholes, okay? So the middle class pays this huge amount of tax. The poor get no tax. They get all kinds of benefits. The rich get no tax. They get all kinds of benefits. Okay? So we're honoring the rich and we're honoring the poor, and the middle class has to pay for it all. That's crazy. Nobody wants to be in the middle class and actually work if you have a society like that. And so the society that we have in the Torah is very much moving people towards the middle class. It helps the people who are poor by having the corners. You don't go through and glean your fields. What does that mean? That means that the poor have the right to come into your fields and pick up the leftovers. Now, we don't have to send them a check, okay, because what's that doing? That's encouraging them to sit in front of a TV and eat bonbons. No, they have to get out and work for this, and they're not going to get much, right? And if they're working, then guess what? They're probably going to pick up a job here at some point. And so that's what we're doing. We're encouraging people to work. And we're taking care of the poor at the same time. But it's not preferential treatment, right? They have to work in order to get up into the middle class. But the rich, they don't have an advantage either. They cannot use their money to make money. In other words, because they are rich, they can't make loans to the poor and get the poor to pay them extra money every month, okay? No, they have to go out and work for their money. If you have to work for your money, if you can't make money on your money through interest or through rent, then you're not going to get super rich doing that, okay? That's what happens today. You've got rich people who are leveraging their money to get more money from the poor through interest and rent, and that makes them super rich. And that's not allowed in this type of society. Everybody is moving towards the middle. And that's what we have in the congregation. We have a sharing congregation. We're not paying a rich pastor. so that he could be really rich, and you can have poor people in the congregation giving their last dime to this guy so that they can get a blessing, right? We don't have that stuff. Everyone has to work. The guys on top, the apostles, they have to work at a secular job. The poor people, they have to work at a secular job, but they're going to get a little bit extra help from the people who have extra. Okay, so we're doing a sharing type of thing in order to help everybody get into that middle class. Okay, so so this is a justice system that is going to not be partial to the poor and not be honoring the mighty. And it doesn't say rich; it says mighty. Very interestingly, because who's the rich? The rich are strong. The rich have power. Okay, so the problem with the rich is not that they have a lot of money. The problem is they have a lot of power, and they use that power to manipulate the laws to help them and make them be able to get more money from the poor. Okay, very bad, and that's a very interesting thing about the Torah. You know, we have judges, and we have officers, and we have lawgivers. Except who is the lawgiver? God is the lawgiver. And he gave a group of laws called the Torah, and now we're done. We're not adding, subtracting, changing, doing anything in the legislature. There's no legislature to change the laws, okay? Because they're all perfect. We just have to interpret them properly. All right, let me break there for our time situation, and we'll continue in Leviticus 19 in the next video.